Hey everyone, welcome to Magic the Gathering for Advanced Players. I'm Matt Sperling. Wait, is this Magic the Gathering for Advanced Players? Or something slightly different? I'm calling it Magic the Gathering Conspiracies for Advanced Theorists. What are we going to get into today? Well, there's a couple theories circulating about MTG Finance and when certain cards were being speculated on. Did people have inside information? There's a lot to get to. Let's get to it. What happens first? October 21st. Well, this is this is the order in which I found out about it. October 21st, they announced the Pioneer format. This is Wizards' mothership saying, hey, there's a new non-rotating format. It's going to be Return to Ravnica forward, and there's an initial ban list. So it was starting from Return to Ravnica. That's going to be important in a bit. And then there's only 6 cards banned initially. The 5 fetch lands and Rampaging Ferocidon. So that's the format Pioneer. Now, if you were going to speculate, well, this tells you how to do it. Purchase cards that are powerful from Return to Ravnica to present and not the fetch lands. Okay. So what's the issue? How does this change from that story about this new exciting format to something different? Well, GoatBots tweets, a week ago someone started buying out. This is the day of the announcement. A week ago, that would be October 14th, I suppose, someone started buying out sets RTR forward on Magic Online. This person also wanted to buy thousands of event tickets. Could be insider trading. We'll discuss the use of that term later. Regarding the new Pioneer format, here's the price set history for Kaladesh. There's a spike around October 14th. If you look at a set like Innistrad that just missed, so that spike isn't there. So then the community is kind of wondering, what's going on. Immediately, people start to say, well, but there was this leak on the Wizards event reporting software that showed that Pioneer was a format. Now, immediately, my bullshit detector went off because that information that they said was disclosed was just like the name of a set. It's just not going to really let you... If you find out, oh, there's a new format called Pioneer, are you going to know to buy Innistrad and not, or to buy RTR and not Innistrad? They started buying before that leak happened potentially, so GoatBots rules that out. Despite GoatBots saying like that's BS, this perpetuates. There's this thing in our community where someone gets a convenient answer to an interesting question, and then whenever someone else brings it up, they're in the replies or the comments on Reddit, and they're saying, well, here's what happened. What happened was this thing that happened that I heard about on the different Reddit forum or on Twitter, and it just kind of regurgitates the same information. No one's critically thinking, is that actually enough to speculate? And did the accounts of the people who actually disclosed what was going on, did they actually give information that... So you want to be careful. Now here we are in a conspiracy video. But look, this is not going to be some nut job conspiracy. This is actually, we're going to try to parse the information in a rational way. So if the guy is saying there's evidence that this was not based on this WER reporter issue, then that shouldn't get brought up in every single thread since, but of course it is. So what actually happened? Well, I did some asking around. I tweeted out, hey, someone let me know, before I reveal it, I guess I already did. Before we get to that, I tweeted out, let me know if you know anything, if you heard anything, let me know. Now, did I get any hard evidence back? No, I didn't. I got some pretty credible descriptions of second and third hand information, though. So this is an MTG Finance group or forum, I don't know which. There's a message that goes around before the announcement saying we've got some information, we think it's over 80% accurate. It's high risk. I mean, well, they tell you the percentage accurate, so I don't know why it's so high risk. Play safely. Great advice from MTG forum, Anyways, MTG Finance Dad says play safely, do your research. Well, this is the research. Our source is not primary, and most other sources cannot confirm. So I'm hearing this secondhand, and this person's hearing something secondhand apparently. But interestingly, it's not. There's a new format called Frontier. The post goes on after some other information. This format will be RTR to LED with fetches banned. So starting in RTR, fetches banned. This is not someone layering speculation on top of speculation to get to some 80% confidence guess. This is a leak, right? I mean, this is when I saw this, and someone telling me, a friend of a friend had access to this before the announcement, that tells you there was likely a leak. Can I prove it? Absolutely not. Is my information third hand? Yes. Should you take it with a grain of salt? Well, you're watching YouTube and someone's babbling to you about conspiracies through their webcam, so yes, you should take it with a grain of salt. That goes without saying. So there are rumors also that people had this info from this not right before, but weeks before the announcement. So some folks had this before it was disseminated more widely, and that makes sense, right? If you're an MTG Finance head and you get this kind of information, you're probably going to potentially make your plays first. Most people who are in this touting business, whether touting sports betting picks or MTG Finance, they're mostly snake oil salesmen that are front running. They may have some limited information, but look, that's useful to new people doing it. But for the most part, they're touting stuff. They're oftentimes, if they do get something that's actually actionable like this, they're going to front run. They're going to get their trades in first, then spread it around so that help the spike out and give some value to the people who subscribe. So I would have healthy skepticism about the value of the information. Except here, people may have actually gotten useful information, although it's a little bit from a nefarious source potentially. So interestingly, there's this information being disseminated before the announcement, although not super widely. I didn't hear about it before the announcement. You probably didn't, but some folks did. And even before that, of course, someone had to prepare that message. So some people got it even before that, potentially days or weeks before that. Is this legal? Well, yes and no. So first of all, no, it isn't insider trading. You remember the GoatSpots post I showed you a moment ago talked about, is this insider trading? Well, it's like a free speech thing. You don't want to argue. Someone's using insider trading as a casual term to mean they had insider information, they used it. Another person says, no, that's not insider trading because of the legal definition. So yeah, from a legal perspective, it's not insider trading. The SEC has a definition of security, and if you're not trading securities, it's not going to meet that particular legal standard. But in the common parlance of our times, insider trading is oftentimes what we talk about. If someone had in a Magic finance community, if someone had knowledge of a ban that was coming up, look, we can call that insider trading informally. Doesn't make it illegal. Well, what if the person also bought Hasbro stock? Well, then it could be insider trading. Now, there's a whole other analysis that would have to happen involving, the possession of material, non-public information. So was this information material? I'm not sure that prosecution on that ground would survive, that materiality analysis. Materiality meaning, did it really matter? If you find out the CEO's favorite color, you may have non-public information, but it's not material non-public information about the pricing of Hasbro stock. Similarly, a new format, is that material information that would impact the value of their stock? I think it's unlikely, and you could look at pre and post announcement if the stock didn't move. That's some evidence. So I'm not saying even if they prove the person bought Hasbro stock. Now I wouldn't want to be that person if that's the case, because that starts to sound like insider trading, but it still might be a hard case to bring. But the info itself is likely protected under NDA. Now, NDA is a shorthand, non-disclosure agreement, but really that's even more shorthand for all different types of confidentiality obligations. Sometimes they show up in an employment agreement. Your employees might sign, or not your employees, or Hasbro's employees might sign a NDA or confidentiality agreement as part of a larger set of employment agreements. It might be a standalone agreement that folks sign. It could even be a separate side letter for folks who have access to set information or news. Different ways of doing it. It all ends up being the same thing. You've agreed to not share certain types of non-public information with other third parties or the public at large. And so when that information is shared, there's been a breach of one of those NDA provisions, either the employment agreement, the contracting, consulting agreement, or the confidentiality agreement, non-disclosure agreement, whatever you call it. So originally, when someone finds out, someone outside of Wizards who wants to start buying stuff finds out there's this format starting in Return to Ravnica and fetches are banned. And that sounds like it's likely a violation of the NDA. But just because that original leaker was under NDA, that doesn't taint the information forever. It's not like everyone in the world is now under NDA. Like me, if it hadn't been announced yet, would I be allowed to talk about it? It's like, look, at some point, it gets passed around enough that any kind of action against that person would just be too weak a claim to pursue. If it's the very next person who gets it, maybe there's some kind of inducement type of tort. Those are usually too thin to bring anyways, but possibly. And certainly you can always go, if you find out who the original leaker was, you go back to that person and say, hey, we got a problem. And that person could be in some serious legal trouble, civilly at least. And, I mean, potentially more. Again, every state has different laws. Sometimes there are potentially, corporate espionage type of penalties. But for the most part, we're talking about breach of contract. And we're talking about, hey, you signed this confidentiality agreement, whatever form it took. You breached that agreement, and there's really some damage here because the community's lost trust, in the process. I mean, the damages case is not actually super easy here because Wizards is not, a holder of these cards that was damaged. So the damages case is a little bit tough, but still, it's harmful to their reputation at a minimum. With limited exception, contracts are only enforceable against the parties to the contract. So the folks who signed an NDA, they're the folks who should be the most worried. The other people, again, these aren't securities, so they're not going to get a knock on the door from the SEC. Okay, the folks in the MTG Finance group, yeah, they got some information ahead of time. They speculated. We can argue about the ethics of it, but from a legal perspective, they should be pretty good. So this might not be over because Wizards can find out potentially who leaked it. Follow the money. GoatBots is just a vendor. There are online vendors. People tend to not be... I mean, look, there are smart criminals and there are less smart criminals. If a bunch of people had this information at various times, some of them likely didn't do things like purchase from some account that's not traceable. Are there even Magic Online accounts that aren't traceable? I don't know. On TCG Player, where did it get shipped? So now, I mean, Wizards, has to have the capacity and capability to investigate crime and fraud. We know they have an anti-counterfeit. They must have an anti-counterfeit capability given what's happened with counterfeits. They must have this in some sense or be able to retain it. So is this something that they might be interested in? I think absolutely. I mean, this is something they don't want their announcements. And who knows, if this is being leaked, what's the next thing that's going to get leaked? So they don't want this, and they may be investigating it right now. Who knows? I'm not here to say I know more than you know. I don't. I've shared with you now what I know. But I think it's logical they're going to be doing some investigation. Hey, if you're one of the people that was the first to go to TCG Player and buy 100 Saheeli Rai, well, how did you find out about that? And if you're not willing to answer, well, that's potentially a problem as far as your, I mean, what are they going to do about it? Well, I mean, I don't know. They could try to take legal action against you if they thought you had access to information, and then, in order to prove that you weren't doing anything nefarious, maybe, you'd end up in a court case and get subpoenaed. I mean, it's tough, right? But if they care a lot, and they should care a lot, they're going to do what they can do to try to get folks to talk. Maybe, if you want to be participating in Wizards of the Coast events. I mean, they've got a bunch of private membership leverage. Do you want to be a member of the DCI and play sanctioned events? You want to show your face at a Grand Prix or other Magic type of event? Well, you better talk to us about who shared that information with you. So those kinds of conversations might be happening. I don't know. They're going to. I suspect they'll be trying to follow the money because they can tell on Magic Online what transactions are happening. And I'm sure they've got friends at places like Channel Fireball or TCG Player or wherever where they can figure out what were the first speculations happening. Subscribe to my channel, The Last Conspiracy to Mention. Now, if you appreciate this type of content, I'm just trying to get you up to speed on advanced strategy for Magic the Gathering. Today was kind of a fun departure from that, but again, I'm just trying to get you up to speed on what I've heard from my friends about how this thing went down. If you're speculating out there, be careful, as that MTG, as that one forum post said. But I appreciate your support. Like and subscribe. Thanks.